morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to this edition of the Tuesday Telecast. This is a roundtable edition again, and today we are talking about oneness with God. We have people coming in who are from the ministry, who are from a spiritual healer background, who are business people, and we all have a connection to oneness and to God within, without, and everywhere. So, without further ado, I'm going to see if hello and welcome to the Tuesday Telecast. And we have our roundtable here of people who are going to talk about oneness with God. And so let's actually get straight to the people at the table, and I'll let you guys all introduce yourself. Let's start with Kim.
Good morning, peace and blessings, everyone. My name is Kim Martin-Raymond, and I am a minister, a spiritual life coach. I am a holistic nutritionist, author, and founder of Redefining You LLC, where I help my clients to realign themselves, mind, body, and spirit. I am also the host of the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. And so I am very pleased to be here and to talk about oneness with God and how that has been an essential part of my life and things that I do on a daily basis. So that's me. I'm glad to be here. Thanks so much for having me, Lydia.
Fabulous. Thank you, Kim. And let's go to Allison.
Hi, y'all. I'm Allison Jeffereys. I am a life coach, best-selling author, and I specialize in working with women, help them find themselves and remember who they were born to be. And when we talk about oneness with God, that right there is one of those things we were all born to be. And I love to tell the story after a 30-year corporate career as a public speaker. The first time I ever spoke in public was when I was the president of the youth group in my church, and I was called upon to give the sermon at 17 years old to my entire congregation. And if you want to talk about doing a little bit of soul searching before you do that at that age, I look back on it and I started the sermon, if you believe in God, stand up. And everyone did. And then I asked a very important question. We can't see him, hear him, smell him, taste him, touch him, but yet no one hesitated. We all have a different reason, but we all have an important reason. And that's why I'm on this call. I just love to have a conversation about this type of topic.
Wonderful. Thank you, Allison. And Jason, let's hear from you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me on today. It's a beautiful panel. I love to be here with you all. My name is Jason Jurado. My company is One Path Coaching. I am transitioning to One Path Healing because that speaks more to my true journey, and I'm not going to hide anymore and be out there and then truly live into my full calling. Talking about calling, so I work with people on the three connections. One of the ways I look at it in this conversation is there's three connections: connection to self, connection to others, and connection to a higher power, whether you call that God, source, spirit, universe, creator. And that's the third connection. I think that's what we're going to talk about today, and helping people with those three connections. And so I'm really excited to be on this panel. And just one quote I want to share to start off is a Rumi quote. There's nothing wrong with a Rumi quote, right? You are not a drop in the ocean, you are the ocean in a drop. And that's kind of where I'm coming from today to represent that viewpoint as we talk about connected to higher power. And thank you.
Thank you, Jason. And Joy, welcome.
Welcome, thank you. Joy Brooks, podcaster and mastermind facilitator. If you see me looking down, it's because I've got a dog that's nagging me. And speaking of dogs, did you know that dog backwards is God? And really, there's a piece that I discovered, and within that piece, that's where God is. So it's something that's always there, but we're usually too busy to hear.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Joy. And I am your host, Lydia, Lowery, Busler. And aside of doing this and being a lifelong musician, my place as a performer, as a musician, has always led me to the healing place. And I'm also embracing that. So, but a lot of what I have in my belief about and my power and the energy is oneness, is really oneness. So, let's actually go to that space now. What are we looking at when we have a moment of, hey, I'm connected to something that's bigger, and I really feel that, and I'm embracing that. Talk to me about either your first or your most poignant connection to not being alone.
Well, mine was attached to an experience. And I know you're familiar with it, Lydia, and I believe Joy is as well. I lost my youngest daughter 14 years ago, October, and she had a brain aneurysm and she passed in her sleep. She was almost 17 years old. And, the last breath that entered her body was mine. And the one thing that is so poignant in that is that, there are some people when they lose their children, or they've lost a child, they're angry with God. Why did you take my baby from me? I have an older daughter who is 35, and you say to yourself, why did you take my child from me? I was never angry. I was never angry because I was always of the mindset that God makes no mistakes. He makes no mistakes. And so, the passing of my daughter was for a reason. And for me, it solidified my relationship with him because I understood that no, he doesn't make mistakes. I am still here. She was here for the time that she was supposed to be here and did all that she was supposed to do. And I remembered that when I gave birth to her, God gave her to me and I gave her back to him through prayer and through her life. Lord, you blessed me with this beautiful child, and now I give her back to you. That she and my prayer is that she carries on and does the things that you would call her to do in her life while she is here. And I believe that she established that. And that was the poignant and pivotal time in my life where I was just like, wow, I understand who I am. Because I feel that when you come to the end of yourself, when you get to that place of full surrender, then you experience God. And that was a pivotal time. That was a time where that was tested for me. So that's where it began to really take root for me.
Thank you. Who else?
I'll share, and thank you for sharing that, Kim. That's a beautiful story and a way to look at it. Yeah, when we think we're not connected, that's the problem, right? When we think we're separate from God, source, creator, whatever you want to call it, that's when the trouble is. They say that love is all there is, or a call for love, and it's all God or a call for God. We are connected, and when you lose that connection, something for me is, I've heard that said that the term inspired means being in spirit. And I that's what shows up for me is that my whole life I've had that inspiration and things coming through me, whether it's I've been writing since I was 6 years old, and telling these stories, or even now, helping people with their mental health, and then now doing it one-on-one. There's times when I just was sharing a story the other day where with my family that sometimes I'm pretty prolific. I try to put posts and articles and published and things of that nature, and I'll come across something and it'll just show up, the world of online, right? Things just come into our existence and I'll read something. I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat or whatever. I'm like, well, that's yours. like it's something that I wrote and I didn't recognize it being mine. I was like, oh, or when I'm talking to a client and I'll say something and they'll go, oh, that was really good. What did you say? And I'm like, I don't know. It was kind of the word channeling gets thrown around, but it's not that's that, but it's just it's spirit coming through me. I don't do anything. I just help people on their journey. And so that's how I see God, creator, spirit is through me, is as it comes through me. That the part about, and I don't want to take up too much time right now. I know I want to share, but we're like a hologram. And if you know about a hologram, no matter how small you cut that piece, you shine that laser, you shine that light through it, and it makes that whole picture. It might not be the brightest picture, but it still shows that. And I think that's where I come from, where we're all just part of that same hologram, where God shines through us, and we're here to, let God have that human experience through us. And that's how it shows up for me. Thank you.
Mm.
Was beautiful, Jason and Kim. I'm like, don't want to go after either of y'all, so I just have to get this over with.
Thank you.
Even as a young child, I just always knew I wasn't alone. And I just always knew that I was special. But you get told don't brag, don't boast, don't be this, don't be that, don't do the other. And you go through life but I knew that as long as I had that connection with God, I would always be protected. I would always be okay, and things would be fine. And I had that belief that, there is a plan and there is a purpose for each and every one of us. But we do have free will, so it's up to us to screw it up, which we all do. But then there's always a path back. And I think the most important thing is for me to remember that we have free will for a reason, because we have to choose that faith. We have to choose to live by that faith. We have to choose to walk in that faith. And it's not in what we do out there that counts, but it's what we do in here and in this relationship with God and in that relationship with who we have in the mirror, that we are truly at our best. The old saying, I know I'm somebody because God don't make no junk. And when all else fails, I fall back on that one. And when we keep those two relationships in line, everything else just works. And that's just the way it's been for me. And I try to share that with others, because without that, I don't know how I'd make it through a single day. I just don't know.
Mm.
There's something in everything. So you may walk into the kitchen and think there's nothing special about that, but there might be something there that perhaps you're overlooking. Maybe something on the table, maybe something in the refrigerator. I mean, the most mundane things can capture a single moment that lasts a half a second. That can be your day. And if we're rushing to go from here to there and never slowing down to take the steps in between, we miss those moments. We miss that intelligence. We miss that oneness that provides for the next. So I like to think that every moment there's a miracle. Every single moment there's a miracle.
Mm.
And that doesn't mean that your life needs to be full of miracles. It merely means there's something special going on. It is a miracle. Don't throw that away. Don't throw that away.
Being present.
Why would we want to embrace the miracle? Why wouldn't we want to embrace the miracle? Why would we want to throw that away when there's something good, when there's something I like to journal awe, and I've been going through this act of posting awe every day, and sometimes it's the love between a dog and a person, and sometimes it's
He
something.
likes your voice. Sorry. Continue.
All right. I'm glad to soothe the dog. And a lot of times it's something smaller, and so a lot of times it's something bigger, but it's wherever it strikes, because it's every single day part of that place that we live, whether it's our heart or it's our space here on earth, it's all full of this amazing wonder. And
Doesn't necessarily come in English words,
no,
any words. It doesn't necessarily, we may be searching for that identity, searching for that reason to be, searching, and it's right there. There are no words. It's a leap of faith for certain, but it's right there. And I can't describe it to people. You really need to step backwards, like retreat way inside, and then open your eyes, and it's right there.
So beautiful.
It's coming back to center. Like you said, it's coming back to center. And I mean, as simple as a breath. When we can just take that deep breath, because that lets us know that we're here. When you take that deep breath, when you take that and you release it, it brings you right back to where you are, right in that moment. And to me, it's that breath of life. It's letting you know that you're here, that you have a purpose. And sometimes it's just to be able to breathe and to say, I'm here. Because sometimes we're so bombarded with the things that are going on around us and the things that are coming into our ear gates and our eye gates. We're bombarded. And sometimes it's just to be able to breathe and say, okay, wait a minute. Everything stops, but that breath is still going. It's still letting me know that in the midst of everything that's going on, I'm still here. And let me start here. Then I can project out. And that's when you're talking about that spirit. It's from within. And we're always looking to rationalize and reason things and put definitions on things. That's why I love, Jason, that you say he's God's source. He comes with so many titles. There are so many ways in which to receive that. And it's what it is to you and what it means to you inside. And sometimes when we try too hard to put it in a box or put it in a circle, it doesn't always fit.
Right.
And so it's just a matter of letting it be. Sometimes just let it be. We are beings. And sometimes it's important just to let things be and not define it, but to embrace it and to experience it.
When we can
That's
just
everyone's-
be, we can be part of the whole. We are part of the whole. When I'll reference my awe post again. I looked, I found this gigantic hole in the sun, right? And I said, that is just incredible. And I posted about it. But that sun is part of the solar system, and it's like that's like a cellular family. And within our galaxy, that's like our whole neighborhood of families. And we are attached to everything in that thing happening out there. It is happening, but it affects us. And it's amazing. And there's not a thing that happens anywhere from one galaxy to another that doesn't have a ripple effect to other parts of the universe. And we're just like that. There isn't a thing that happens that doesn't have a ripple effect, because it's just like, if you don't take care of the cut on your finger, your whole body can go on. But if you don't take care of that cut on your finger, you don't clean it up and it festers, your whole body will get sick. And when we treat others like other, and we hurt them or we don't help, that has an effect on all of us, on all of life, because we are all connected. We are one. It's like don't do an injury to something and not expect it to be injuring you.
So
That's beautiful.
And
Yeah.
I just have to say, I was very lucky in that I was raised by a mother while she was in her faith. She encouraged us to go to different churches, to go to different religions, synagogues, mosques, wherever we would be allowed in. And I think one of the things I want to differentiate in this conversation is when we talk about oneness with God, we're all taught religion. And some people get just so stuck in that dogma of their religion that they can't be part of the greater community like you just talked about. We're all children of God. We're all created by God. And my clients are from all over the world. I work with women from India and South Africa and Nigeria and Russia and the United States. We are truly a melting pot in here in the United States. And I love to ask their story. I love to ask what their faith is. And it is so beautiful when you hear all these faiths described as to what they mean to the individual. And it doesn't matter which faith it is, but the description, how it gives us the strength to keep going, how it gives us our purpose and our direction, how it gives us that feeling of unity and oneness with others, is redundant in all the faiths that I've talked to people with. And that's why I think it's so important to elevate what you just said, Lydia. We are all connected by our faith, by the one source out there that created it all. And when we differentiate ourselves by religion, we're doing ourselves a disservice.
Those religions, all religions are just like all languages. They come as a response to the moment that we're born by the sea, or born in the tundra, or born in the forest, or born in the sand, born on the mountaintop. We of course we're going to come up with a different language. But what's amazing is that we've all asked some sort of question. Who am I? Why am I here? What is connecting me to all of this? And our answers are remarkably the same. They just come out in different languages.
Right.
And we come up with different names for source, for energy, for God, for Jehovah, for whatever we say, we're coming up with the same answers. It's a unity in it. For goodness sake, our dogs are coming up with the same answers. It's called love.
Exactly. Yeah.
I was going to say
Something.
there's beauty in it all. I'm sorry, Jason. Go ahead.
No, please. I was just going to add that, and this, I'm going to share a quote, and the language is antiquated, but it makes its point. So Paul Zane Pilsner, he was an economist, but he's also he's Jewish. He's a rabbi, and he said that when he was a young man, he went to his rabbi because he saw these religions around him, and was like, oh, well, people are different than me, whatever. And he went to the rabbi and asked about that, and his rabbi said, isn't it wonderful that God loves us so much that he gives us all these ways to praise him? And like I said, the language is antiquated, but that's so true. It just allows us, we have our own way to connect to source. And the challenges in the world, and not to go in a negative way, but the challenges when we tell people how they have to do it. And it's like, that's not my place. I mean, we're all connected, but find what works for you. Find how you connect to source, how you connect to everybody, and that's amazing. And I wanted to go back to something Lydia said, talked about, being connected together. My belief is that we are all one. We all come from source, and so that way we're all connected. We're all there. And one of the things is that two things I wanted to share is that, like David Hawkins' Power versus Force, he talks about when you change yourself, you change the world. That's where we start. Is we can elevate the world's vibration by increasing our vibration, and we can bring it down too by being negative as well. So we start within, and we have that positive vibration and we spread out to the world. And just the other day, I heard Jack Kornfield say, in talking about how the world, we have a lot going on in our world all the time, and right now it's challenging times. But well, what do I do? And he says, mend the things you can touch. So start with yourself, start local, start close, and mend those things, fix those things that are close to us, make those things better, and those ripples will go out to the world. And those ripples are source or God. So I think we all have the opportunity every day, Kim talking about that breath, starting with that breath and just connecting with ourselves, and then just let that go out, let that love spread. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely love that. I love that, Jason. And I was going to say, you know, when we think of ourselves and we think of of our past and things that are going on in our lives, I want us always to be mindful that even in our brokenness, I think of a mosaic. I always think of a mosaic. Shards of glass, shards of broken pieces, they may be sharp, they may have caused pain at some times, but it's our ability to connect with source. It's that love that surrounds us that takes those broken pieces and makes them into a lovely mosaic. And no mosaic is the same. No one person is the same. We all have a past. We all have things that may have caused those cracks and crevices in our lives. But when they're met with love and with that connectivity that we have as a people, what a beautiful mosaic it makes. And in those pieces that were broken and that were sharp are smoothed out. And they're reflective of who we are, but it still reflects back something so beautiful, a piece of art. It's art when we look at who we are and how we can take those pieces and make something so beautiful. And that just lets us know that even when we think about it, I had a friend who told me about it, about an egg. Until that egg is broken, it can't be used in as many ways as it can be used. Yes, we can decorate the outside of it and it can be beautiful, but until it's broken, then we can use it as a part of an ingredient to make a recipe, to make something that's nutritious for us, that we can scramble it and make it an egg. It has to be broken first in order to be used. And how are we broken in a way that we can be used of source or used of God? And so that has to happen in order for us to get there. That's why I love when we talk about getting to the end of ourselves. That means being able to get to a point of surrender. And how do we work on getting to that place of surrender so that we can be used? So that when we wake up in the morning and we take that first breath, that first fresh breath of air on that new day, we're saying, look, how can I be used today? How is it that you can, how is it that you would have me to be used today? And you ask him, and then you begin to walk in that. And that's how I begin each day with, look, the song says, if you can use anything, Lord, you can use me. Take my hands, Lord, and my feet. That beautiful old spiritual. How am I going to be used today? And that's how, we walk, and that's our purpose. That's what gives us purpose. That's what lets us know where we're going for the day.
It touches our writing, it touches our dancing, it touches our singing, it touches our cooking, if we allow it to. Joy, what were you saying?
I was saying that I like what Kim said, but we're we measure our experiences. It was a good experience. It was a bad experience. But when doing that, we don't realize that it really is an indifferent experience. It's what we take away from it. So yes, there's a death, there's a birth, there's a marriage, there's a divorce. These are, these things happen every day. It's what you take from it. And not that there's sadness that's not valid. Sadness is valid. It measures happiness. It also provides you with the definition of how to move forward. The sadness of losing someone essentially gives you an outline of how to fill that void, who to put in that void, who to give to. I mean, it's all a common threads weaving together into a life that is a little bit of a surprise. Sometimes, as I said, sometimes things happen. They're not necessarily good or bad. They're all perhaps required reading.
Well,
Yeah.
I go through life and the thing that's always hit me is that how can you know love if you've not ever hated something? How can you feel good if you've never felt bad? And I believe that in our lives, we have these dichotomies. Everything has a continuum. And I'm blessed to help women that when I meet them, they're in their most broken place. They've gotten divorced, their marriage has failed, they're having problems with their kids, whatever it happens to be. And for me, I've always found a way, and you've talked about it, Kim, is to embrace the stuff that feels horrible. Because to me, that's the opportunity. If it can feel this horrible, then how good can it feel? And this is getting me where I need to be. And each and every mistake, failure, trip and fall, flat on our face that we go through in life is what makes us who we are meant to be. And people say, oh, is there really a God and this and that and the other? I mean, good grief, look at your DNA. Each and every one of us has unique and independent DNA that no one else in the world, unless maybe you're an identical twin, and we're not touching that one, but no one else in the world has. And then as we go through the evolution of life, it expresses itself on our DNA as well. And that to me says to me there's some continuity, and it has to be something much bigger than each and every one of us. And when you learn to embrace both sides of life, and when things start going bad, instead of getting upset, hey, I'm getting this over with because there's something good coming. And that's the way I go through life, because I make lots of mistakes. Just saying.
Yeah,
What's
it's
bad and
interesting.
what's good?
Mhm.
Your turn. I was gonna say one reason why I named my podcast How Now, because it's not what now. We know what happened, or we know what's going on. It's how now. How now are we going to navigate in that space in the space that we're in? And for me, that is there's hope in that, and saying how, because that lets me know that there's a way to get beyond where I am. It's not as finite as, okay, what now? What are we going to do now? No, it's a how now. It's how are we going to go? There's some progression that lets me know that something can be done, and it can be done in a positive way, or it can be done in a forward moving way. And that's why I think it's so important, that life is about toolboxes. And Lydia knows that's my favorite thing to talk about, toolboxes. How do we prepare ourselves when things happen? Just like we have that toolbox in our car, we have that tire iron and that spare tire in our car, in that gas can in anticipation of something happening. What do we do to prepare ourselves spiritually? We talk about our daily bread. Think about when you're hungry and your stomach starts growling, and you go and you eat something that satiates that feeling of hunger. What do we do to satisfy that hunger when we're spiritually distressed? What do we reach back to? Do we reach to our daily bread, the word, the Bible? Or do we have a favorite scripture? Or do we have something that we refer to when we're in that storm, when that situation arises? Or do we just react? It's all about how do we respond when situations come up and our faith is challenged. How do we prepare? How are we preparing ourselves for that? Or do we just react when it happens? Or do we have that, oh, something's happening? I have a scripture for that. There's a word that comes to mind for that. There's a promise that was made, and I can refer to that. Do we prepare ourselves for that? Are we in that mode of reacting, or are we in that mode of responding? to the things that are going on around us. How are we preparing ourselves spiritually, just like we prepare ourselves mentally and physically, like we prepare for an exam, like we prepare food when we're hungry? How are we spiritually preparing ourselves? And that's a question that we need to ask ourselves as we're going on our wellness journey, because it's not just about the physical, it's about that spiritual and mental journey as well.
I like that
Mhm.
toolbox. We all need our toolbox. We all need to prepare that toolbox, that oh shit bag.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
You're
and
right.
it's not just physical. You're right, or else we wouldn't have this mind that that is visionary, that you can envision when we react. An action has a consequence, and a reaction has a consequence. But the one thing that we really have a lot of control over is taking all of those consequences and choosing instead, because that's that envisioning we have. And where does that come from? Go try to figure out that on along with any sort, oh, this is a, you know, logical thing that we can think into the future and create. Is it logical, or is it what connects us? So I want to approach this switch off a little bit and say, what is this idea of if we can be of help, or if we can fix one thing that if that Jason referred to. What about the people, the governments, the groups of people um, who are trying to fix things? And some things we agree with how they're trying to fix them, and sometimes we don't. And sometimes the fixing is to make something that's broken not be broken, as opposed to letting it be broken and become a new thing. There's so this is the idea of really how people become suppressed, how people end up warring when there's a decision to, and this might be an actual valid decision to try to fix something. So I want to just open up the floor to your ideas of fixing via helping, and where that can work in a unified way, and where that can work in a way that is separate and painful.
I'll jump in the mix here. I think it comes down to intention. I think that's, what is your intention? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to fix something to have more control of the situation or the people? Because that's not going to work. That's not going to show up. So if your intention is coming from, and I realize this is more of a spiritual talk, because governments, when I'm going to say, you're like governments, but are you coming from the heart place? Right. And that's the reality of it. If they're trying to, like I said, if it's about control and it's about just holding things in the way that they see them and they want them to unfold the way they are they truly coming from a place that it's going to help? It's going to take us to that next place. It's going to get us closer to the truth with a capital T. I think that's what I would add to this conversation.
I love that intention.
100%.
Yeah, the
Oh.
truth is for everybody just a little bit different. And you know, the one thing that I know, and everybody here knows, the only person we can fix or change is ourselves. And unfortunately, you know, I'm talking about governments or whatever, we've been taught in the world we live in today to live what I call from the outside in.
Mm-hmm.
We take stock of everything else out there, what everybody else wants us to do, all the should, woulds, coulds. And we live from the outside in. And if we want to fix anything, and we can only start with ourselves, we have to start by learning to live from the inside out. knowing who you are, knowing what your values are, knowing where you come from and what you want to create in this life, what your purpose is, and learning to live from that place, that no matter what anybody else out there is doing, they can't change what I'm doing in here. And when each one of us starts coming from the inside, and that love that we hold inside, in whatever form or fashion it is, whatever purpose we have ahead of us, each one of us can start moving the needle, whether it be our governments, our elected officials, by being true to who we are and living from the inside out and showing other people to live their truth, their honesty, their love. And we can change the world.
I'd
Just
like
saying,
to
I
say
wanted,
that activism and action are not necessarily the same thing. And I've often told people who like to complain about everything or anything, often said, instead of complaining, take the moment, figure it out, go volunteer and get it done. So that's action. Now you can go out and you can become an activist along the same lines, thereby inflaming or acknowledging or sharing information about a movement you feel is important. But I say that activism doesn't necessarily positively impact the situation as much as a volunteer can actually, even if it's only one person, the odds are you're going to positively impact them. You're going to go to a soup kitchen and give somebody food, as opposed to going and carrying a sign and saying people are starving. I'm not saying that there isn't a need for activism. I'm merely saying that sometimes actions are, what to do is really pretty simple. And it's a little bit of a sacrifice, and not everybody gets to hear about it. You're not going to be on TV with a sign. You're going to be a nobody behind the soup kitchen line, chopping carrots.
And
Volunteer.
which one spreads a little happiness?
that's right. That's right. And I believe it's all laced with our ability to express empathy, because no one wants to feel discounted. We want to, people want to feel that things are acknowledged. It's, oh, we hear on social media, oh, you're being extra, oh, you're doing the most, you're doing too much. It's a reality for someone else. Just like Allison was saying, your truth, your belief, it's what you believe. And we have to be so careful and mindful not to discount how someone feels about something or the experience that they've had, to say, we may not agree with it, but to discount it and not to acknowledge it is to take away what that person may value. And so we can't say, oh, well, just because they haven't experienced it, oh, well, you're doing too much. It's acknowledging that I see that this is something that means something to you. And then we can look at that, taking that action. This is something that's real to you. This is something that it may not be in my existence. It may not be something that I'm experiencing personally, but I understand that this is something that you're experiencing it. And I'm acknowledging that you're experiencing that. I'm not discounting that. Because just people want to feel valued, and they want to feel understood. Doesn't mean that we always agree, but I acknowledge that this is something that you experience and it is real to you. Because when we start discounting how people feel, then that's where they start becoming offended, and then they become defensive, because it's, oh, you don't believe in what I'm saying, you don't think that that this is my reality, but for them it is.
But
and just like we can say, I'm sorry you've experienced it.
Along the same lines, if we start in and move out, then we realize that the value is inside, and someone doesn't need to recognize it. They may invalidate it, and it doesn't matter. And I don't need to feel offended. Matter of fact, if anything, maybe this person needs to experience something. Maybe I can help them. They're thinking that I'm invalid. I'm thinking they need a little bit of help. So it's a very calming moment to basically say, and I said before, take a step back. Take a step back and think, what's the point of this moment? Where am I going with it? Is it pointless? It may be indifferent, and just sit on it. And the realization will come later. You may think, oh, I waited too long. I should have acted right then and there. Oh, I regret this. It shouldn't be regret. You should realize that you needed that time to think it through. You don't need to always act or say. You don't need to be the smartest, the brightest. Though all of those things are unnecessary, it really is a matter of, am I fulfilling those things inside the skills that I have? Am I finding something new every day? It could be a seashell, for goodness sake, that you bring home and you put on your shelf, and somebody else looks at you and says, what are you doing? Doesn't matter. I am getting something from this, and they don't need to understand.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
It's right back to that idea of us being of us being a finger on a hand, on a whole body. And do we take care? Do others take care of that finger? Do we take care of that finger? Are we going to go, if we're feeling bad, we're going to infect everyone else, right? But we have it all within us, and to realize that everyone else has it all within them, because it's the same energy.
And it's not competitive energy.
No.
No.
We're right where we are, right? Wherever
Right.
we are, whenever we are, we're right there doing exactly what we are supposed to do. So,
Can I add something?
yeah.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
This is a great conversation, but I wanna loop it all into kind of what we're talking about. And the main picture too is, there's the saying that we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And when we disconnect, when we move too much into that human, to that animal, that's when the stuff shows up that Kim's talking about. That's when it shows up, because as a human, having the spiritual being having the human experience, that human experience wants to be heard. And that's something that I'm very I talk about a lot, is about we don't listen enough, and people want to be heard, and that's that human side. Now, ultimately, what we're talking about today is connecting to source, connecting to God, connecting to spirit. When we're in that place, to Joy's point, we don't need to be validated. We don't need to be heard.
Right.
But
Right.
as we float between those two, that spiritual being and that human being, and that ego shows up, or that human animal, the animal wants to be heard and acknowledged. And so that's the point. So once we get to that point where we are more on the spiritual side, we definitely don't need to be. It's internal, and we have that knowing. But
Right.
as we're having this experience on Earth, and we're floating between those two, and I'm doing this with my fingers right now, we're floating between those two, that shows up, and people do want to be heard and need to be heard and listened to. So then it helps all of us then get closer to spirit, in my belief. So I just want to share that.
Yes.
I like that.
And what is your take on our intuition, which so many of us have let go in this lifetime, on this planet, in this society, right? So many of us have let that go. But then we hear these little inklings, especially when we step back, or when we surrender, so we all need to be heard. But yet we have this peace within us, right? But in order to connect to others with that peace in them, that intuition starts to come in. And that is a part of source, part of what it is that connects us all. So your turn.
So like empathy, or like you said, intuition, whereby we might feel something oddly can't understand. Oh, I'm having a deja vu, or something's not right, or something's about to happen, or any of these highly human, animalistic, instinctual things going on. To Jason's credit, there is this dichotomy between human spirit and human body that we're constantly trying to figure it out. And that intuition is sort of the smoke between the two, the mist
I love
between
it.
the two.
Right.
It's like, what the heck is going on here? I don't know, but something's about to happen. And, it may have already happened and you missed it. I'd like to say that, they call it, women know, the women's intuition. I wouldn't just say women know, we all know. But we tend to push that away and say that's, oh, that's being, I don't know, superstitious. I don't
Woo-woo.
think, yeah, woo woo. Thank you. My favorite word, woo woo. I don't think it's like having a dream and waking up and going, what the devil was that dream all about? And now you're trying to figure out, well, what did that mean? Why did I dream about that person? All of these things are our subconscious trying to talk to
Right.
ourselves.
You know,
That's intuition.
And Joy, I just love that you just said that the way you did, because we all have moments of intuition. And it comes down to, when we talk about oneness with God, it's so easy to say, I have faith in God. What is faith? Believing is something there is no proof of. Okay, fine. I got that. And faith is leap of faith, and it's big. And we can believe in God. And this is, for those of us on this call, and for a lot of people, semi easy, because it is just there and you can feel it. But when you really become powerful in that faith with God is when that faith extends to yourself. And when these ideas come into your head, hey, that person's hurting, I need to go console them. Hey, something's going on here, I need to pray for this person. Or, hey, I need to just make myself available, this person needs some help. Why do we feel like, oh, that can't be real? Or, oh, I couldn't have that thought. It's part of that connection that we have with God, with source, with everyone else. And if we don't honor that intuition that each and every one of us was born with, although women do have more of it, I'm just saying, sorry, Jason, but we discount it and we discredit it. It's almost like saying, I can believe in God, but I can't believe in myself. And he created me, or she, or whatever, created me.
I just had a thought. And let's get it scientific. We're recognizing patterns, right? There's the science there. Our brain is simply picking up on a pattern that, 2 dots and a dash type of a thing. We're like, wait a minute, 2 dots and a dash? I've seen that before. Where have I seen that before?
Right.
It's just picking up on that.
Right.
Amazing.
Always trying to connect.
Yeah. So to wrap it up, what is your what's your takeaway for finding source, finding our oneness, finding our unity, finding God? If we're in the audience and we're not feeling it, we feel like something has happened lately that's happened to us and that we must not be connected. What's your quick tip for people connecting in? Anything?
Said it. Things happen to us. There's 3 levels of existence. The first is everything out there happens, it's happening to me. It's all a crapshoot. Okay, that's when we're a victim. And we can't do anything about it because it just happened to us. Then we step up a little bit in our lives and we realize that life is happening for us, even though we don't understand it and it's some pretty bad shit out there. we realize that it is still happening for our highest good and it's moving us along. But when we get truly connected in to each other and to God, we realize that life comes from us because it's
Yes.
what we create with that heart and with that love that we've been given that comes from us is the proof of everything we need to know.
Mm-hmm. Connect to that love. Step back and connect to that love.
For me, it's like I said, it's creating that toolbox. I'm always going to go back to it, is creating that toolbox, not when the crisis is occurring, but creating habits that you do daily so that when things arise, you're already prepared. It's not, oh, I have to prepare for something that's already happened. Yeah, I have my Bible study time that I do every day. So there are scriptures that are meaningful to me, and I write those down so that way when a situation arises, to my memory, I say, oh, I've read something about this. I've read about a promise about this. I've read something that refers to this, and I can go back and reach into that toolbox for it. And so it's preparing myself before things happen. So while I'm in my happy place, while things are going well, let me pick up a word. Let me pick up a book. Let me recite a scripture. Let me have a saying or something that resonates with me, that brings me to that happy place. So that when things begin to look dim, I can go back to that. So it's just starting to put those tools in place and make them a part of our daily habit. Just like you have that beautiful Monday morning meditation we look forward to, that's something that people can hang their hat on. They know that time is coming and that they're going to come away from that with something that's going to lift their spirits. And that's something that happens not because something went wrong that Monday, but because it's Monday and that's something that I've created a habit of doing. So it's just creating those things that are going to put us in that space. Start your toolbox.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And I would share that one of my favorite quotes is that
Oh.
Ironically enough, I hit my mute button. Silence, silence is a language of God. All else is false or poor translation. And I think that's what you can start is just get silent. Just find a moment to be silent and let all those other thoughts just pass through. I teach meditation as well, and it's just to get silent and spirit creator God is talking to you all the time. They're there all the time. It's there all the time. And when we get silent, then we can truly hear it. And so make some time in your life to get truly silent.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So
I'd like to thank everybody. It's it's a good conversation, and it warms my heart, warms the cockles of my heart.
while you get your face washed.
It really, and my lap warmed.
It's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, each and every one of you. I appreciate you. And this has been a beautiful conversation on the joyful path. Thank you for being on this roundtable.
Pleasure. Pleasure. Peace and blessings, everyone. Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings. Thank you for joining us for that conversation. And if you have ideas about your place with God, with spirit, with the oneness of that energy that you feel around you, please leave it in the leave a comment down below. Remember that you can step back and say, is this real? These demons I see in front of me, these troubles, or is this a platform for me to grow? Remember your oneness and the place which connects us all. Appreciate you. If you liked this episode, please hit like, and remember to help us keep going, ever so gently push the subscribe button. I appreciate you and look forward to seeing you next week. Remember that you can, if you want to take this as a podcast without having as much visual distraction because you're driving or you're running or whatever, and you just want it to run easily in your pocket, you can go to the podcast list here on The Joyful Path. Thank you, and I'll see you next week. Ciao.